Viktor had on Orban, the Hungarian prime minister. I actually quite like this guy. I've liked him for a very long time. I've done videos on him before. Now, pretty much what I'm looking for, because they do talk about Russia in here, and Orban has a very particular, interesting mind that he understands Russia. And so what I'm going to look for in particular is what he thinks. His relationship with Russia, Putin, the war, all of that.
As the war in Ukraine completely reshuffles the world order and threatens to destroy human civilization, it's striking just how little information Americans are receiving about what happens there. The nation of Hungary shares a border with Ukraine. Its leader, Viktor Orban, the nation's longest-serving prime minister, has been dealing with the Russians all of his life. He grew up under Russian occupation. As a young man, he was arrested and thrown into jail by Russian-backed police for his efforts to liberate the country. And as prime minister, he's dealt regularly with Vladimir Putin, whose nation supplies Hungary with most of its energy. Viktor Orban understands Russia and Ukraine. So 2 years after we last spoke to him, we returned to Hungary to sit down with Prime Minister Viktor Orban and ask him what exactly is happening in Ukraine right now. Here's what he said. So in the United States, the view is that Ukraine is winning this war. It doesn't sound like that's true.
No, it's a lie.
Right off the bat, no, it's a lie. He's wiping something off his nose. Maybe he's got some danglers. I don't know. But he doesn't even put his hand down or try and make it look semi-nice. He's himself. Like, I'm not going to do my nose on camera. I got to look professional. Nope. He is himself, which is always refreshing. And so when he does this, he brings his hand, stops, angles his head towards Tucker. No, it's a lie. He's so open and normal. It's so nice to see.
It's not just a misunderstanding. It's a lie.
So then you see both hands come up like, stop. It's not a misunderstanding. They do the negative to themselves, copy in the head. We've talked about this multiple times. It's a lie. And throws it. It's a lie.
It's impossible. Everybody who's in politics and understand the logic, the figures, the data, no way.
Why is it impossible?
Because that way, the poor Ukrainians die every day.
Yes.
Hundreds and thousands, you know. So my heart is with them. So it's.
So here you see him. He's anchored himself, one elbow on the table. I'm going to assume that this is probably his normal, as far as his comfort normal. Because unfortunately, for those of you who've been watching this channel, he's never in a comfortable situation. This one apparently is very comfortable because he's relaxed into it. He's anchored himself in it. He's very open with his hand movements and his head and neck movements.
It's tragedy. It's tragedy for Ukraine. But they will run out earlier from the soldiers, number of soldiers, than the Russians. What finally will count is boots on the ground. And the Russians are far stronger, far numerous, more numerous
There's more
than
of
Ukrainians.
them. Many more.
So this strategy, what we are just supporting.
That was a very interesting foot movement you see there. They come back out, they go back in, they come back out, they come back in, you know, that kind of movement. He has said his piece, and these facts in his mind are hard. In reality, they're really hard too, but they're hard facts. And so if you visualize him standing, it's the mind that said, all right, I've thrown it at you, and now he's walking towards the person, throwing the facts at them, and then walking away like, okay, I've given them to you, and now I'm done. Invasion of space, basically, which is quite good for a politician. They have a strong mind, especially if you like their policies and you want them to enforce it. They have to have that strong mind in order to do it.
Is a bad engineering of the strategy.
So
now that did make him uncomfortable. You see the elbows kind of flail out on both sides, not together, but one flails, the other one then flails after, and vice versa. It makes him uncomfortable saying this. I'm going to assume because, well, we know all the shenanigans that are going on. And as strong-minded as he appears to be, you can grab that bull by the horns. It doesn't mean that you're like not scared.
If the Biden administration has said our goal is to beat Russia, is to effect regime changes to kill Putin and take him out of power.
You know, they misunderstand probably the Russians. You know, to understand the Russians, it's a difficult thing, especially if you have an ocean between you and Russia. So when we
now we're seeing him anchor back down into it. So he's about to throw some truth at you.
Speak about politics, I mean Westerners. What is the focus point of our conversation? The focus point is freedom. How to provide more and more freedom to the people.
Yes.
When you speak on politics in Russia, this is not the number one issue. The number one issue, how to keep together the country, because the country is very big. And there's a privilege of the question how to keep together the country and not freedom. Freedom is just another issue, second, third, whatever.
So as he speaks this, you see his body sing with him. One, he's opening his arms up. He's talking with his hands. Everything's moving freely. He mentions the word freedom as far as their perspective of it. It's gone to the side. It's a second issue. He pushes it away. It's a second issue. So this, one, the body is singing with him. We're getting a really good baseline on this. Two, now when we do Putin or any of those characters in Russia, we have context to put with it, because sometimes it really does, like, what does this mean? Why are we stressing on this particular subject? Is it deception or is it something else? Now that we have Mr. Orban here giving us some perspective and context, it could be whatever they're talking about is that the subject matter is at risk of dividing the country. And that is the stress.
First, keep the country together. And that's generate a different kind of culture and understanding of politics. That's create a kind of military approach like
Yes.
they have. Always on security, safety, buffer zone, geopolitical approaches. It's not our culture, it's a different approach. It's legitimate to have that because it's their history. But we have to understand that we cannot beat them as we do just now. It's impossible. They will not kill their leader. They will never give it up. They will keep together the country and they will defend it. We finance more, they will invest more. If we send more technical equipment, they will produce more. So don't misunderstand the Russians.
So they're not going to get sick of Putin and throw him out?
Come on, it's a joke.
What would happen if the West succeeded in killing Putin? What would happen to Russia and its nuclear stockpiles?
Okay, so okay, may I recall one of my experience?
Yes.
So I was prime minister exactly at the time when the change happened in Russia, Putin after Yeltsin.
Yes.
Yeltsin was very weak and getting weaker and weaker. And I do remember the fear of that time here in Hungary and in Europe as well, whether there will be a new leadership or not. So the real fear here was that there will be an anarchy in Russia.
Yes.
Putin is out and no new guy who is coming in strong enough to keep together the country, the nuclear arsenal and the army control and so on. So everybody was happy when realized that after Yeltsin, Putin come in and started to control the military and the Russian power as a leader. So everybody was happy. I do remember that. So now Putin is in power for long, long years. We forgot about how dangerous when there is no strong leadership or interregnum in Russia. The interregnum is the worst case possible. So,
but that is our goal. That is the goal of the U.S. State Department.
yeah, but it's a mistake. If this is the goal, it's a mistake.
It sounds very dangerous.
It's more than dangerous, you know. Okay, if to sit in Washington, safe United States, is a different feeling than to sit here in Budapest. Ukraine
Yes.
is next door country, you know. So what's going on there could have an immediate impact in 24 hours here in Hungary and so on. When I was very young, 86, if I remember well, there was an explosion of the nuclear power station in Ukraine by accident.
Yes.
And it infected us immediately. So if there is an escalation in Ukraine,
Chernobyl polluted.
Chernobyl, yeah, that could have an impact on us immediately. So it's Washington is far away, Russia and Ukraine is close. That's the Hungarian approach.
So, given the manpower imbalance between the Russian and Ukrainian armies and the attrition of the Ukrainian army, hundreds of thousands dead.
And many Hungarians as well. Nobody knows it. But we have a minority, a strong minority, more than 150,000 people in the territory of Ukraine, which was earlier part of Hungary. So it's a historical minority community living there. They are part of the Ukrainian state, and they are conscripted now to the army. And they die. They fight for Ukraine, and Hungarians, soldiers dying for Ukraine as Ukrainian citizens. So we lost, Hungarian nation, we are losing lives daily as also.
At a certain point, they're going to need more men. They're going to need more soldiers. Where are they going to come from?
That's the most risky question. So if any Western country would send any boots on the ground, that would mean a direct war between the West and Russia. And we are in a third world war immediately. So it's a very dangerous moment now.
That's obvious to you.
Absolutely. Not for me. Everybody on the street. All the ordinary citizens are aware that we are living in a very dangerous moment. So the third world war couldn't knocking on our door. So we have to be very, very careful. And that's my message always to America as well at NATO summit. Be careful with that.
And what kind of response do you get when you say that?
You know, they are bigger, therefore they are more clever. So that's always the case.
So they don't listen to you.
We can say in that way also, yeah.
I have to ask you about Nord Stream. So it seems very obvious.
This was odd. It's not deception in this sense, but he's talking about, telling Americans, the American government, be very careful. And he stopped talking with his hands. He planted them on the table, and they don't actually peel up completely away from the table. They are bigger there. They're smarter. It's odd. It would make me wonder what's going through his mind, why he's kind of shutting down on that. And his verbals do not allude to really anything other than he's warning them to be careful.
The Biden administration blew up Nord Stream, either directly or through proxies. I've never heard anyone dispute that, really. How is Western Europe, and Germany in particular, the biggest NATO member in Europe, not saying anything about this? It seemed, that just crushed the German economy. Why don't they say a word about it?
So when it has happened, we commented it as a terrorist attack.
Yes.
It was rejected in Germany and in the West. It was not a terrorist attack. It was something, So that's a kind of evidence of lack of sovereignty. But it's the job of the Germans. I would not like to criticize them. What we Hungarians did immediately, we made clear that there is another pipeline, not just Nordic Stream, but there is a southern stream coming gas from Russia through the southern corridor. Turkey, Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary. And together with the Serbian Prime Minister, President, we did very clear that if anybody would like to do the same thing with the southern corridor as it was done with the northern one, we consider it as a reason for war or terrorist attack, and we will immediately react. So don't do that. Probably you can do it with the Germans, but you can't do that with this region. That was very much clear.
Do you think people understand that?
I think so.
And see, that was another one. So he started with his hands on the table. Now he's back to being open. You can't do that to this reason. And you hear it, and he's like it's a throwdown of his head. There is a surety in his mind with the violence of that and the throw of the head that it was over. This conversation is over as far as no one's going to do that to us because we weren't messing around. So whomever they spoke to or made sure the message got to, they got affirmation that was not going to happen, which is why you can see so much strength in him when he says this. Crazy times, I tell you, crazy times.
You were not speaking to the Russians when you said that.
On that subject.
Yes.
It's a Hungarian issue, it's not a Russian issue.
Right, but when you said to the world, don't commit an act of terror against this pipeline, you weren't speaking.
It was not addressed to Moscow, no.
No, it was not, right. So if you were in charge of NATO...
So it was not addressed to Moscow, you see the negativity. And at the end of that, as Tucker goes into the next question, because his mind is still into, it was not addressed to Moscow, he brings his hands together and encloses. He's gated. I'm sure most of us know who it was addressed to.
Last night we stood here and you had fireworks over the city to celebrate the founding of the city, of this nation, St. Stephen's Day. And you had about 10% of your entire population standing outside cheering. And they all seem to be happy to be Hungarian. How do you get a country that's grateful to be Hungarian and identifies?
It's an ancient nation first. The country was established 1,100 years ago. So we are a historical nation, using the same language, no relatives, nobody speaks the same language around us. Germans and Slavic, no Hungarians. So therefore, to maintain the language, to maintain the culture for this country is a big achievement by itself. So we celebrated even yesterday, that we did it for more than 1,000 years, that we are still Hungarians. And to be Hungarians we are very proud of it. We love the nation, we love the country, and we are proud of it. It's not very much mainstream thinking, political thinking of today Western societies, but in Hungary we are still very patriotic and Christian and committed to that values, not in an ideological level, but on the streets every day.
Do you think that's why you're so unpopular among the leadership in the United States and the West?
I'm not the favorite politicians of the liberals, unfortunately, but nobody is perfect, you know.
But why do you think that is? The country seems to be thriving. That's usually the measure we use.
No, it's more about our civilization. I mean, the Western Christian civilization. Now, the main division line is not according to ideologies. It's deeper. It has an anthropological character.
I kind of like this part, and I'm definitely putting it in. It is his thought process on what truly makes him the enemy of the liberals. You see him again go into that anchored, comfortable pose of I'm about to throw some truth at you. And I think this part is very important, one, for everyone to hear and comprehend.
So on the one side, in Europe and probably in your country, but in Europe definitely, there are groups of people who think that the most important thing of the world is their ego, themselves, me. This is the center of the world. The other camp of the people, the other part of the society thinks that it's not true, because there are certain things which are more important than me, than my ego. Family, nation, God. And because they are more important than me, I have to serve these higher level things. So this society has a majority here in Hungary. And the other society, which is concentrating only me, only dealing with myself, it's more westernized, dominating factor of the political life. And
his body really loves that. On his tippy toes, now he's not a very tall man, so we'll have to forgive him on that one as far as leg length. And he's categorized it literally in his hands. Body sings with him. This is his true opinion. It's ego. Where you and I, most people who listen to me, know that you serve your family, you serve your community, you think of others outside of yourself, versus other people who think only of themselves. Well, that was a very interesting interview, and I hope Tucker does more of these. My biggest takeaway, besides the body language that I told you, but what I have learned is I have heard and understood that some of those neocons that we have over in the USA have grudges against Russia, but they behave in the same cultural way that Russia does, with the security first, freedom second. We call them neocons.
If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.